Walk over to that patch by your driveway, the one with the thick, pale clumps that don't match the rest of your lawn. Grab a blade and pull. Feel how it comes up in a fan, radiating out from a single low point, almost like a tiny palm tree growing sideways instead of up. That's crabgrass. And if you've fought it for more than one summer, you already know the frustrating part. Almost nothing you spray on your lawn touches it without also torching the grass around it. I'm going to show you a method that ends an active crabgrass invasion using something sitting in your kitchen cabinet right now. 1 cup, applied a specific way, and within days the clumps collapse while the turf around them doesn't even flinch. No yellow ring, no dead halo, no collateral damage, just crabgrass, gone. And before you picture some miracle spray you mix up and drench across the whole yard, that's not what this is. You're not filling a pump sprayer and walking the property with it. This is applied by hand, clump by clump, and it works because of one detail about how crabgrass actually grows that almost nobody bothers to explain. Skip that detail and just start dumping powder around your lawn, and you'll kill your grass right along with the crabgrass. So stay with me because the how matters here as much as the what. Let's talk about why crabgrass is such a nightmare in the first place, because it isn't like the weeds I've covered before. Dandelions, clover, plantain, those are broadleaf weeds. Wide, flat leaves, different cellular chemistry than your turf entirely. That difference is what makes them easy to selectively kill. Iron overwhelms them, while your grass shrugs it off and gets greener. Simple. Crabgrass doesn't give you that opening. Crabgrass is a grass, a monocot, just like your turf, with narrow blades and a similar way of absorbing water and nutrients. Anything toxic enough to kill it through its leaves is, biologically, toxic enough to kill your lawn too. That's why the cheap tricks that wreck dandelions in 48 hours do nothing to a crabgrass clump. The plants are too close cousins for that kind of chemistry to pick sides. This is exactly why the industry prices crabgrass controlled differently than everything else. You've seen the bottles, quinclorac, Drive, various blends with a picture of a lawn on the front. $30, $40, sometimes $50 for something that treats a quarter acre, and only if you catch it early. Let a crabgrass clump mature into a thick summer mat, and even the synthetic stuff starts losing effectiveness. You're paying premium prices for a shrinking window, and if you time it wrong, that $40 bought you nothing but a slightly stressed lawn. Before we get to the fix, let's make sure you're actually looking at crabgrass, because I get comments every summer from people treating the wrong plant entirely. Crabgrass grows low and wide, hugging the ground in that fan shape, with coarse, wide blades compared to your turf. It's usually a lighter, almost yellowish green. Tall fescue, if your lawn has some mixed in, grows in clumps too, but upright, not sprawling flat, and it's a darker green with a ribbed texture down the blade. Dallas grass looks closer to crabgrass but grows taller, with a more upright seed head shaded purplish at maturity, and it's a perennial, meaning it comes back year after year instead of dying off with frost. If you're not sure which one you've got, pull a single blade and look at the base. Crabgrass has that low, radiating crown sitting right on the surface. Fescue and Dallas grass crowns sit differently and won't respond to this method the same way. When in doubt, treat one clump, watch it for a week, and let the result confirm what you're dealing with before you go clump to clump across the whole yard. Now, a lot of you are probably thinking, why not just pull it? And I get it, it looks like it should come out clean. But crabgrass roots are shallow and fibrous, and when you pull a mature clump, more often than not, the root system snaps off a fraction of an inch below the crown, leaving enough tissue behind to regenerate within a week or two. You end up doing the same job over and over all summer, watching the same spot refill itself every time you think you've cleared it. And on top of that, pulling disturbs the soil around it, which is exactly the kind of bare, loosened dirt a fresh crabgrass seed is looking for to germinate in. You can spend an entire Saturday on your knees pulling crabgrass, and without realizing it, prep the perfect nursery bed for next month's crop. Here's the detail nobody explains, and once you get it, you'll understand why you don't need their bottle, and you don't need to pull anything either. Crabgrass and turf grass protect their growing points completely differently. Your lawn grass, whatever variety you've got, keeps its crown, the part of the plant responsible for regrowth, tucked at or just below the soil surface. Insulated, wrapped in its own base leaves like a coat. That's why you can mow it every single week all summer, and it just keeps coming back. The crown never takes a hit. Crabgrass keeps its crown exposed, right at the surface, sometimes even slightly raised, with those flat stems radiating outward in the low, sprawling shape you can spot from 10 feet away. No sheath, no insulation, nothing protecting it. The single most vulnerable part of the entire plant is sitting out in the open, completely undefended, and that's exactly where a concentrated dose of baking soda goes to work. Baking soda is intensely hygroscopic. It pulls moisture toward itself with real force. Pour a concentrated pile directly onto an exposed crabgrass crown, and you create a severe, localized osmotic pull. Water rushes out of the plant's own cells toward that salt sitting on its surface. The crown, already unprotected, dehydrates fast from the exact structure that was never built to handle this kind of direct exposure. Within 48 to 72 hours, it collapses. And once the crown is dead, the whole plant is dead. Crabgrass has no backup growing point. Kill the crown, kill the plant. Your turfgrass 2 inches away doesn't go through the same thing because it doesn't have an equivalent structure sitting exposed on the surface. Even if a few granules land near a grass plant's base, there's nothing there for it to pull moisture from. This is the same selective principle behind every product I've covered on this channel. It's not about how strong the poison is, it's about anatomy. You're exploiting a structural difference between two plants, not trying to out-chemistry a problem that chemistry alone can't solve cleanly. This is why precision matters more here than almost anywhere else on this channel. This isn't something you broadcast across the yard. It's something you apply directly to the one plant that's actually vulnerable and nowhere else. If you're new here, this is the pattern every video follows. Find the one structural or chemical weakness that lets an ordinary kitchen product outperform something the industry sells you for $40. If that's useful to you, subscribe, because these pieces are meant to stack into a full system over the season. And tell me in the comments how bad your crabgrass situation looks right now. Scattered clumps or full mats taking over sections of the yard? I want to know what people are actually dealing with this summer. Now let's get into exactly how to do this, because the method is simple, but the details separate a clean kill from a brown ring you didn't mean to leave behind. Step 1 is identifying your targets. Walk the lawn and locate every visible clump using what we just covered. Pay extra attention to driveway edges, sidewalk margins, and any thin patchy spots where the lawn has gaps. Crabgrass loves a gap. If you've got more than a handful, grab a small container of baking soda and carry it with you as you go. Step 2 is the application itself. Take plain baking soda straight from the box, no water. For an average clump, roughly the size of a dinner plate, pour about 2 to 3 tablespoons directly onto the center, right where the stems radiate outward from that crown. Don't ring the plant with it. Concentrate it on the crown itself. where the exposed growing point actually is. For a larger, older clump that's spread wider, you can go up to a 1/4 cup, but the bulk still needs to land on the crown, not scattered across the outer leaves. 1 cup of baking soda, used this way, will handle roughly 4 to 6 clumps depending on their size. A single 1-pound box, about $1.50, will get you through most residential infestations with plenty left over. Step 3 is timing. Apply on a dry day with no rain forecast for at least 24 hours. Unlike a diluted spray, this needs to sit dry on the exposed crown to actually pull moisture out of it. Wash it away too early, and you've wasted the application. Morning works well, before the day's heat adds extra stress to the plant. Step 4. Don't water the treated clumps for at least 48 hours. I know that feels backwards if you're used to watering things in right after applying them, but the entire mechanism here depends on that concentrated dry powder sitting on the crown and pulling moisture out through pure osmotic pressure. Water it too soon, and you dilute the whole effect before it's had time to work. Here's what you'll see if you check back. By day 2, the center of the clump looks wilted, almost slightly translucent, like it's been lightly scalded. By day 3, the crown has visibly darkened and started collapsing inward. The outer blades, which were still drawing moisture from a crown that's now failing, go yellow and limp from the inside out. By day 5 to 7, the whole clump is brown and dry, and it lifts out of the ground with almost no resistance because the root system depended entirely on a crown that no longer exists. By day 10, check the bare spot where it was. The soil should be visibly dry and loose where the clump collapsed, easy to rake clean. Meanwhile, the grass around it, if you kept the powder concentrated on the crown and nowhere else, shows nothing. No yellowing, no burn ring, no stress response at all. Now let me be straight with you about what this does and doesn't do, because I'd rather you know the limits now than get frustrated in 3 weeks. This kills what's already up and growing. It does nothing to stop new crabgrass seed from germinating later in the season. Crabgrass is an annual, so every plant you treat this way was going to die on its own once frost hit anyway. What you're actually doing is stopping it now, before it spreads further and before it goes to seed. One mature crabgrass plant can drop thousands of seeds before it dies naturally in the fall. So killing it in July instead of letting it run to September is the difference between a minor annoyance next year and a full infestation. For actual prevention, stopping seeds from germinating in the first place, you need a pre-emergent barrier down in early spring, which is a different approach entirely and a different video. It also works best on clumps up to roughly dinner plate size. Once crabgrass has been left alone for a full season and spread into a thick mat 2 or 3 feet across with several crowns tangled together, treat it in sections rather than expecting one pass to finish the job. Big mats often have multiple exposed crowns feeding the same root system, and each one needs its own dose. A few warnings before you grab the box out of your pantry. Don't over-apply. Concentrated sodium sitting in one small patch of soil can affect what grows back there for a little while afterward, so stick to the 2 to 3 tablespoons per clump. More doesn't kill it faster. It just adds excess sodium to the exact spot your new grass will eventually need to grow into. Keep pets off freshly treated clumps until you've watered the area on day 3. Baking soda isn't toxic at these amounts, but a dog nosing around a fresh pile of anything on the lawn is never a great idea, and the salty taste can be oddly appealing to some of them. Once the dead crabgrass lifts out around day 7, don't leave that spot bare. Crabgrass loves gaps, remember? So an empty patch of exposed soil is an open invitation for another crabgrass seed. or something else entirely, to move in next month. Rake it out, loosen the soil a little, and either overseed that patch to match your existing lawn, or at least keep an eye on it. And if you've got a lot of clumps, and you're tempted to just broadcast the whole box across the yard to save time, don't. This only works because it's targeted. Spread at full strength across your entire lawn, baking soda will absolutely stress your turf. Walking clump to clump takes a little longer, but that precision is the entire reason this doesn't touch the grass around it. Let me answer a few things I know are coming in the comments. Does this work on crabgrass that's already gone to seed, with those finger-like seed heads sticking up? Yes, it still kills the plant the same way, but by that point, the seeds have likely already dropped, so you're stopping this year's spread from getting worse, not preventing next year's crop from that particular plant. Treat it anyway, it still matters. Does it work in a lawn that's a mix of crabgrass and warm season grass like Bermuda or zoysia? This is where you need to be more careful, because some warm season grasses have crowns that sit closer to the surface than cool season turf. Test on one clump first and watch the surrounding grass closely for 5 days before treating your whole yard. Can you use this in a garden bed instead of a lawn? Yes, the same crown mechanism applies. Just watch for any desirable plants with shallow exposed crowns nearby, since the same vulnerability that kills crabgrass could affect them too. Here's what this looked like on my own lawn. I had a strip along my driveway, maybe 15 feet long, that turned into a solid crabgrass mat every July, no matter what I did the spring before. Last year, I tried a synthetic post-emergent, $42 for a bottle that covered my whole yard, and it knocked back maybe 60% of the crabgrass in that strip while leaving a faint yellow stress line on the fescue next to it that took nearly 3 weeks to fully bounce back. This July, I counted the clumps along that same strip, 14, ranging from fist size to a couple that had spread out to nearly a foot across. I went clump to clump on a dry Saturday morning, 2 to 3 tablespoons on the smaller ones, closer to a quarter cup on the 2 big ones, aimed right at the crown each time. Used less than half a box total, cost me maybe 60 cents. While I was at it, I found a smaller patch near the mailbox I hadn't even noticed, 3 clumps hiding in some thin grass. Treated those the same way as a test to see if smaller, younger clumps died faster than the mature ones by the driveway. By day 3, every clump on the driveway strip showed that telltale collapse at the center. The 3 younger clumps by the mailbox were already further along, fully wilted by day 3 instead of just starting. By day 6, all 14 driveway clumps were dead and brown and lifted out with almost no resistance, and the mailbox clumps had been gone for a full day already. The fescue on either side of every single one looked completely untouched. Not a hint of yellowing anywhere. I raked out the dead material, tossed matching grass seed into the bare spots, kept it watered, and by early August, that whole strip was solid green with no sign 14 crabgrass clumps had ever been there. 60 cents versus $42, and this time with 0 stress on the surrounding lawn. If you've got crabgrass right now, and a lot of you do, because this is peak season for it, this is the week to walk your yard with a cup of baking soda instead of reaching for another bottle that half works and stresses your lawn while it's at it. Catch it while the clumps are still small enough for one clean pass to finish the job. Tell me in the comments how many clumps you're dealing with and where they're showing up most. Driveway edges, thin patches, somewhere else entirely. I read every one, and I want to know how widespread this is out there this summer.